Beauty and the Beast encourages ideas like being humble and appreciating a person's character and virtue over their appearance and possessions. The character Beauty in the original fairy tale is fairly idealized. She's the most physically attractive among her sisters, an active reader and musician, treats everyone from all walks of life equally, and readily opts for the most just, morally right response to any given situation. For example, when her family suddenly uproots from a posh life to more rigorous country living, she immediately takes up cooking and cleaning without complaint. In short, she steps up and helps out where she can because she knows what role she can play that best helps her fellow family members. It's an example of how self-aware and compassionate she is, the two key traits that set her as a role model character. The standout example of Beauty's actions, though, is when she willingly surrenders herself to the custody of the Beast to rescue her father. The Beast himself turns out to be very generous, if not misunderstood. He started out as a cruel, selfish soul that was forced to become a kinder, humbled soul in order to reverse his curse. Most of the emphasis of the tale is to emphasize Beauty's good nature and character. And because of her diligence and goodness, she gets the ultimate reward in a handsome, loving husband, a grand estate, and a fulfilling life in the lap of luxury. Keep in mind that fairy tales are meant to be exaggerated, whether in an extreme and unpleasant respect, or a saccharine sweet one. Think the sappy Disney twist. The ultimate takeaway is that a person should try to be as good, kind, and virtuous as she can. Enter Ruby's Blake, a character partly inspired by this particular fairy tale. Blake certainly shares Beauty's looks, sharp mind, and intense fondness of reading. Blake comes across as introverted and reserved. This is coupled with dry wit and a sarcastic streak, so she's not completely unapproachable, though, like the cat her fondest ears echo, she prefers to approach others and participate at her own discretion. As the series continues, she shows how emotional and passionate she really is. There's so many thoughts twisting and rolling around in her mind at a given time. Where everything turned out well for the altruistic young maiden Beauty, Blake is grappling with how cynical and rough-edged the world of Remnant is. She started out as such a hopeful, bright-eyed, and idealistic young girl. She yearns to see true peace and equality between humans and Faunus. That's originally what kept her glued to the White Fang's cause, and presumably, Adam's side. In some respects, Adam starts out as a benevolent beast who offers her everything in the hopes of keeping her close and earning her trust, though he acts as a very stark thematic contrast. He's an alluring and attractive figure already, but he is an evil, unforgiving, and corrupt soul at his core. Bees care deeply and genuinely for Beauty. For Adam, Blake became an unwanted nuisance. His feelings or affections towards her were strictly conditional. In their final interactions in Volume 3, Adam has become sadistic and wrathful. He's out to seek vengeance if only to stoke his ego alone. When Blake left Adam in the White Fang, she was in the middle of an intense existential crisis. How does she retool her ultimate life wish? She's very aware of the remaining tension and prejudices between humans and Faunus. This starts with their simple black bow, and extends as far as her heated argument with Wise. It's one thing to look a prejudiced human in the eyes and empathize with her side of the story and overall losses. It's another to continue slowly pulling away and disassociating herself from how extremist the White Fang has become. Blake has become wise and worldly sooner than she would have liked. When she describes her past, she shows how wholly dedicated she is to her cause, as, well, a Faunus rights activist or an advocate of peace. She was utterly devastated and disappointed by what the White Fang has become. But these feelings quickly switched towards impassioned anger and determination. She transferred the original care and devotion she held for the White Fang to an intense obsession directed towards bringing them down as quickly and completely as possible. In some respects, Yang is a unique contrast and complement to Blake. Where Blake is reserved and introverted, Yang is open and extroverted. Where Blake carefully measures her thoughts and words, Yang is blunt and straightforward. If she's frustrated with someone, she'll pull them aside and state what's on her mind. Though Yang just as readily lavishes her younger sister and friends with praise and hugs when appropriate. At first glance, Yang comes across as very carefree and easygoing. Everything is a giant party, from bellowing witty one-liners or puns at enemies to catapulting through the air and whooping during a fairly weighty class assignment. Pair this with strong self-confidence, self-assurance, and an assertive attitude. This especially shines through in Yang's fighting style. She rushes in fists flying, and she has the physical prowess and strength to back up this aggressive approach more often than not. Arguably, she's Team Ruby's powerhouse. While Yang tends to be pretty chill, she has an angry streak. At the worst, her eyes flash red and her temper overwhelms all of her senses and any logic. In essence, she receives a big strength and speed boost at the loss of rational logical thinking. It's the ultimate adrenaline dump. Granted, Yang's eyes flash red a few times outside of battle too. This can just as easily allude to how serious or disgruntled she is with a certain set of circumstances, a heavy discussion, or otherwise. On another note, Yang has a very strong understanding of how others operate, as well as how to calmly, compassionately approach them. Given time and development, Yang's empathy and sympathy will continue to become even better honed and refined. This stands out most often with Ruby, but she has a few meaningful scenes with Blake as well. From the moment they became partners in the Players and Pieces two-parter, the two clicked on a meaningful level. They're a pair of complementary opposites, from personality to fighting style. Note that Yang dives right in, and Blake has a ranged weapon as well as a unique semblance that allows her to set up decoys and stealthily sneak away. The most significant episode involving Yang and Blake is Burning the Candle. Yang assures everyone that the tired, overworked Blake will show up at the dance. How does Yang go about achieving this particular result? Viewers are treated to seeing the more thoughtful and introspective side of Yang. She understands Blake's desperate, hungry pursuit for answers and solutions in regards to tracking and stopping Torchwick and the White Fang. In Yang's case, her biological mother has always been a mysterious and enigmatic figure. The idea of finding out the truth looms over her with a similar gravity to what the White Fang holds for Blake. Yang recounts a story about discovering a clue that could lead to her mother's whereabouts, then determinedly setting out to investigate just this, when she remorsefully says,
"My stubbornness should have gotten us killed that night."
That sets up the point of her story. That was her turning point in how she decided to cope with her big mission. She's determined to find out what happened with her mother, but not to a self-destructive measure, or at the potential measure of hurting others too. That's the point Yang wants to convey to Blake. She has a worthwhile cause, but she has to balance the time and energy she devotes to it with their own well-being. She has others she can relate to and confide in, but she also holds a commitment and responsibility to her teammates too. Yang's reassurance and advice is what leads to Blake further reaching out to and further trusting the group at large. When Blake first confesses to her rocky background with the White Fang, it's to fellow Fauna's son. Blake has good reason to be wary and cautious around others. This chalks up to a combination of her criminal background, how rotten Adam turned out to be, and the general tension between humans and Faunas. Sun started out as a more attractive confidant because he was an outsider and fellow conspirator. Though, even Sun had to wait until Blake felt suitably comfortable and open to him. By the time Yang pulls Blake aside here, just about every controversial fact and background figure is laid out on the table. Yang shows that she's not only trustworthy, but an unexpected kindred spirit in regards to pursuing bigger, conflicting issues. Yang and Blake are both incredibly fiery, passionate souls. Blake may be the more focused and disciplined one, but she went to Beacon with a similarly open-ended reason to what Yang did. She was pursuing a pretty broad concept in how to make the world a better place, though she's found a means to narrow down and refine her goals because of her teammates and experiences as an aspiring huntress. It's interesting that as a viewer, I'd expect Blake to bring Yang down to earth at some point, but the opposite happened. The kindred spirits aspect is the strongest aspect of what makes the dynamic between these two specifically stand out. It's highly believable that Yang could eventually become Blake's best friend and closest confidant. Yang may be more withdrawn and stoic after the events in the final few episodes of Volume 3. If anyone could relate to and empathize with her here, it'd be Blake, given what scattered and tragic background she comes from. Yang feels like the world has crashed and broken down around her after she's pinned with an unfair foul when she defensively lashes out against Mercury, after Penny and Pyrrha die, and after she failed in stopping Adam. She lost her arm in a desperate all-in strike to defend Blake against him. It's a tragic but fitting scene when Blake lays there, holding an unconscious Yang's hand and watches over her. Whether she meant to or not, Yang took one more step into Blake's world and drama. The next time Adam shows up, Yang will definitely be there with their own stakes and vendetta, as much as playing moral support or backup for Blake. Coming back to the original framing device, perhaps these two could be a complement to the idyllic fairy tale pair. Let's say that Blake is a rough stand-in for the Beast and Yang is a rough stand-in for Beauty. At first, Blake comes across as a mysterious figure. When she runs off after her argument with Wise, she feels overwhelmed by her past with the White Fang and mounting racial tensions between humans and Faunus. This is roughly comparable to how the Beast feels trapped and restricted by his curse, his gruff, beastly outer appearance. He has to be careful and measured in how he approaches and interacts with others because of how they might react to him. The Beast scares and intimidates others. He's misunderstood and persecuted for his appearance in the same vein that Blake feels she'd be discriminated against or feared for her race and controversial background. Enter Yang, an attractive, well-liked, and admired individual. Beauty is appreciated for her looks, comport, and open, friendly attitude. Beauty goes out of her way to be kind and respectful to everyone, as well as help out where she can. Compare this with how loyal Yang is to her sister and her friends. She is the first to step up and volunteer, if not the likeliest candidate to rush in and defend someone she cares about when they're hurt or vulnerable. The biggest similarity is that both Beauty's and Yang's greatest strength are their compassion and understanding. What brought Beauty and the Beast together was Beauty reaching out to and empathizing with the Beast where others didn't, even despite their pressing and unnatural circumstances. Yang can appeal to and understand Blake in ways that others can't. There lies the crux of what makes their current platonic friendship so meaningful. It also plays a big role in a budding romance between them as well. Blake would want somebody she could earnestly, genuinely rely on and trust. Thank you very much to my patron for the suggestion and commission overall. I don't really ship these two personally, but their general relationship and dynamic was one of the more fascinating in the cast overall. They click and bounce off of each other in a unique way, similarly to Jean and Pyrrha or Ruby and Wise. I could see a romance budding between them with certain developments to writing. As an aside, even if I don't personally ship a pair, I'm open to taking a crack at setting up a hypothetical romance or just character analysis. It's a fun challenge and helps give more insight to the characters themselves.